So David Whyte is from Ireland. He was very good friends with the poet John O'Donoghue.
Mm.
I think it was really more well known than David Whyte. And John O'Donoghue was that fabulous Irish poet who was a Catholic priest and who left the priesthood when the whole revelation about what was happening in the Catholic Church with sexual abuse came out. He was just so horrified, he left and really dedicated his life to writing. And so anyway, David and John were very close friends and did a lot out in the wilderness. So David Whyte was a wilderness guide in his 20s and then became an organizational consultant. And then really realized that he felt like his real calling was poetry. And he has come to Asheville and he tours all around the world. I've seen him several times in Charleston at the Sophia Institute. He's fantastic. Highly recommend him. We're actually going to watch a short a few minutes of him speaking. He's got one of those accents that you don't even care what he says. You just want to listen to the way he speaks. It's so great. But he speaks several languages, and it's so beautiful when he gives talks. He will often read the poem in its original language, which is quite a treat to hear that. I think I've talked before about just the way you can tune into a poem when you hear it in its original language, even if you don't speak the language. There's something very special. There's a transmission that happens there. So so this is I'm going to read from my favorite David Whyte book. It's called The House of Belonging. And he wrote these poems when he went through a divorce and what it meant for him as a writer to find alone time and quiet time, and sort of how he incubated his new self in that, which I think we're all probably feeling some of that during COVID. We're all feeling like we're doing a lot of incubating. And this is a poem I actually memorized years ago. I'm going to use a cheat sheet. It's called The House of Belonging. I awoke this morning in the gold light, turning this way and that, thinking, this day like any other. But the veil had gone from my darkened heart, and I thought, it must have been the quiet candlelight that filled my room. It must have been the first easy rhythm with which I breathed myself to sleep. It must have been the prayer I said to the otherness in the night. And I thought, this could be the good day when you could meet your love. This could be the black day when someone close to you dies. This could be the day you realize how easily the thread is broken between this world and the next. And I found myself rising up in the quiet pathway of light. The tawny, close-grained cedar burning around me like fire. And all the angels of this heavenly house ascending through the first roof of light the sun has made. This is the bright home in which I live. This is where I ask my friends to come. This is where I want to love all the things it has taken me so long to learn to love. This is the temple of my adult aloneness, and I belong to that aloneness as I belong to my life. There is no house, there is no house, there is no house like the house of belonging.
Did you say his name was David Whyte?
Yes, and it's spelled Whyte.
So that's basically the title poem from the book.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. He lives in Washington now. This one's called Sweet Darkness. It's so good. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your womb tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
So good.
Mm.
Rainey, I love that you're multitasking. Carry on, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to. We're having a guest and we live in 2 rooms. So
Oh, yeah, no, it's
I
fine.
love this poetry because it's just the mood I need.
Yes, well, we're happy to be poetry to organize too.
Thank you so much.
And to read resumes by.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it's just, poetry. It's just one of those things that goes with everything.
Well, the beauty of it for me is I actually organize through a lot of things because it takes the emotion, they take the emotion, and you don't get emotionally involved in your own stuff. So it's
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. This is called All the True Vows. And so David Whyte had just left his marriage. And so it's really a reflection on the fact that he broke a vow that he took very seriously and what that means, what it means to take a vow. All the true vows are secret ones. The ones we speak out loud are the ones we break. There is only one life. You can call your own and 1,000 others you can call by any name you want. Hold to the truth you make every day with your own body. Don't turn your face away. Hold to your own truth at the center of the image you were born with. Those who do not understand their destiny will never understand the friends they have made, nor the work they have chosen, nor the one life that waits beyond all the others. By the lake and the wood, in the shadows, you can whisper that truth to the quiet reflection you see in the water. Whatever you hear from the water, remember, it wants you to carry the sound of its truth on your lips. Remember, in this place, no one can hear you, and out of the silence, you can make a promise it will kill you to break. That way, you'll find what is real and what is not. I know what I'm saying. Time almost forsook me, and I looked again. Seeing my reflection, I broke a promise and spoke for the first time after all these years in my own voice, before it was too late to turn my face again. I think I'd like to read that poem again.
Please, that's magnificent. From she who has broken so many vows.
All of us.
All of us. Wasn't it Rumi who said, "You who have broken your vows 1,000 times before, join our caravan. This is not a caravan of despair." Something like that. All the true vows are secret vows. The ones we speak out loud are the ones we break. There is only one life you can call your own, and 1,000 others you can call by any name you want. Hold to the truth you make every day with your own body. Don't turn your face away. Hold to your own truth at the center of the image you were born with. Those who do not understand their destiny will never understand the friends they may have made, nor the work they have chosen, nor the one life that waits beyond all the others. By the lake in the wood, in the shadows, you can whisper that truth to the quiet reflection you see in the water. Whatever you hear from the water, remember, it wants you to carry the sound of its truth on your lips. Remember, in this place, no one can hear you, And out of the silence, you can make a promise it will kill you to break. That way, you'll find what is real and what is not. I know what I'm saying. Time almost forsook me, and I looked again. Seeing my reflection, I broke a promise and spoke for the first time after all these years in my own voice, before it was too late to turn my face again. This so much reminds me of that fabulous, I think it's one of my very favorite, Baba quotes, that which is real is given and received in silence. He almost said those, almost those exact words, but in different configurations in this poem. I love that. So as you'll see in this book, silence and listening and that reflection time is really a theme in this book. This one's called The Winter of Listening. No one but me by the fire, my hands burning red in the palms while the night wind carries everything away outside. All this petty worry while the great cloak of the sky grows dark and intense around every living thing. What is precious inside us does not care to be known by the mind in ways that diminish its presence. What we strive for in perfection is not what turns us into the lit angel we desire. What disturbs and then nourishes but everything we need. What we hate in ourselves is what we cannot know in ourselves. But what is true to the pattern does not need to be explained. Inside everyone is a great shout of joy waiting to be born. Even with summer so far off, I feel it growing inside me now and ready to arrive in the world. All those years listening to those who had nothing to say. All those years forgetting how everything has its own voice to make itself heard. All those years forgetting how easily you can belong to everything simply by listening.
Is he a Baba person in any way, shape, or form? No.
No, but it's kind of fun the way he keeps going into the same topics that Baba talks about in it. It's one of the reasons I love this poet. This one's called The Well of Stars. Blue lights on the runway like stars on the surface of a well into which I fall each night from the sky, emerging through the tunnel door of the jetway and the black waters of the night in the cities of America. In the lit rooms of glass and steel, in the still and secret towers, under the true stars hid by cloud and the steam-shrouded roofs of the mansions of money and hope. I come with my quiet voice and my insistence and my stories, and out of that second and deeper well, I see again those other blue stars and that other darkness closer even than the night outside, the one we refuse to mention, the darkness we know so well inside everyone. I have a few griefs and joys I can call my own, and through accident, it seems, a steadfast faith in each of them, and that's what I will say matters when the story ends. But it takes a little while to get there. All the unburdening and the laying down, and the willingness to really tire of yourself. And then, step by step, the way the poets through time generously gave themselves to us, walking like pilgrims through doubt, combining their fear and their fierceness and their faith. And you now, in the front of the room, under the fluorescent light, by the reflected window, hiding all the stars you have forgotten. One more member of the prison population whose eyes have caught the open gate at last. You are the one for whom the gift was made. Keep that look in your eyes, and you'll gladly grow tired of your reflection. All this way through the great cloud race between here and Seattle, just to look beneath your face. There, for all to see, the well of stars and the great night from which you were born. Any comments, reflections?
You're just so moving. It's making me very sad though.
Making you sad?
Oh yeah, the vows.
Why,
in it.
why is that?
Well, I keep going back to vows and lost loves and various other problematic things in life and dead husbands, dead fiancés, and so on, and half dead, dead in the body with Alzheimer's husbands, and so vows. It's a huge subject, huh?
It is a huge subject. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's an important subject, I think.
I think I have to put vows to melody.
Mm.
There was a repeating refrain. When I read it again, I'll remember it.
It reminds me of a topic a conversation I was having years ago with someone about trust, and basically they said the person that you have to trust the most in your life is yourself.
Mhm.
And it just really struck me as being so true, because if you cannot trust yourself, you can't figure out who you can trust and who you cannot trust.
Mm.
How can you trust when you're 19 and 20 and making vows for life? I mean, how can you trust yourself? It's all very poignant.
Yes, but I think you can trust yourself at 19 or 20. I mean, there are people who are intuitive enough and listening to themselves enough at any age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Joan of Arc. I think she was 17 when she, got her calling.
Right.
Look how young Baba was when he,
But I'm not a saint and I'm not on the sixth plane, Tracy.
Baby, I'm so disappointed. What? I'm shocked.
I go from the
I'm gonna just block you right now.
And everything's my fault. I'm Irish after all. It's no one else's fault.
Definitely, it's definitely your fault. Yeah,
definitely.
Glad you pointed that out.
The burnt chop syndrome. Mother will take the burnt chop, darling.
Well, might be a nice moment for us to hear from David Whyte himself.
Yes, lovely.
Here's just a few minutes of him talking. This was so David Whyte has a website that you can go to, davidwhyte.com. And since he is at home and not traveling, you can sign up for like a podcast that he does. I guess it's not really a podcast. He sends his video to you, and it lasts for about an hour and a half. It's on Sunday mornings, and there's 3 of them in a collection. They last about 2 months, and then at the next 2 months, there's another 3 videos, and there's a topic that he chooses for each of them. They're quite lovely. And I've been listening to them the past, I guess, 6 or 7 months when I realized he was offering them. They're $60. I think they're quite a deal. And this is a little excerpt from the one that he did in July. And it was on the topic of conversations. I mean, it's interesting because in Sufism, they believe that that conversation is more important than even meditation. And it reminds me a little bit of what Baba has said, that that in the future we will have meditations, but in this time what is even higher than meditation is love. Sort of saying the same thing. So we're going to listen to just a few minutes where he's going to talk about conversation and nature, and then we're going to flip over to a few minutes where he talks about friendship with the unknown, which I think is such a important topic for any spiritual seeker, because it's, to me, it's really the silence that Baba talks about, that incubative womb space where we don't know what's there, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're willing to be present with it and to listen and to see what's incubating for us that we haven't seen in the known or the seen world. So let's see now. I have to do that thing that I always mess up. Share screen.
Oh, good. It's all your fault now.
I know, right?
I'll come for a couple of minutes.
I'm here to take your burden, dear. So I know I hit the share.
Beast of burden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Share sound. That's what I was looking for. Okay. So we're sort of we're jumping into the middle of a talking game.
And we often try to do so many things alone that we're meant to invite help in for. Yeah. And we can think of help with other human beings, but we can also think of help from what is beautiful. I mean, it may be that you live in a very busy city, but there is a park with a sheet of water, you know, with birds, wild birds that land on it, you know. There's always a little corner of wildness that has another agenda than our own, you know, and wonders why you are having such a difficult time in the midst of the miracle of existence, you know. And it's such a cliche, that phrase, the miracle of existence. You'd never use it in a poem, but it's a cliche because it's so stubbornly true, actually. The view of your daughter's face, yeah, smiling, your son's silhouette against the sky if you're out walking, your friend's silence just before you know they're about to say something to you that you need to hear, you know. All of these qualities in the world that are other than us, actually, and that are inviting us. So we rest into, in a sense, a different kind of conversation, into drinking from a deeper well. We stop the conversation in order to get a deeper form of nourishment. You take yourself off out of the house, yeah, out of the relationship, out of your duties. Yeah. Joseph Campbell said, you know, you should have a place to go in your life where you do not know what you owe anyone or what anyone owes you. You do need a place in your life where you do not know who you're married to or who you're in relationship or who you want to be in relationship with. You do not know that you're a father or a mother. You do not know that you have to earn a living. You open up a beneficial and merciful space for yourself where you can enjoy that experience.
So we're going to move on to a few minutes of him talking about making friendship with the unknown. And I love what he just said about that nature often has another agenda for us than our own. I think that's so beautifully said. And it really reminds me of what I think living into something that's bigger than us is all about. You know, it's why we're so grateful for the guidance. I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. It's why I'm so grateful for the guidance of Baba, because I know he's living in a world bigger than my own, and has an agenda that's really bigger than my own. And that's sometimes so refreshing to step out of our own agendas and step into that bigger space. So let's see. It is 1707. I'll find that. Oh, look at that, I did it.
And this puts us into a relationship with the unknown, as I worked with last week, and asks us to actually make a friend of the unknown, to walk with the unknown, and to not call on easy answers too early in the process. When we follow this friendship with the unknown, we eventually run into something that is initially something that seems other than ourselves. There's a kind of shock, and it's the shock of understanding actually who you are now in your life and what you've become. It's the bump of coming to ground in present circumstances. I often think that most human beings are a good 7 or 8 years behind who they've actually become. And the whole struggle has to do with actually catching up with themselves. They have old dreams, they have old senses of the world that they're hanging on to with their strategic minds. But a central part of them has already said, I'm fed up with that. Let's not bother with that anymore. That's a story that's not good for me, makes me too small. Yeah, I'm ready for something else. This is a piece I wrote. It's probably one of my more famous poems around the world. It gets quoted a lot. It's called Sweet Darkness. And it's written about that bump with something that seems to begin with other than yourself, but is actually the most intimate part of you. It was written at night as a hymn to the night, actually. I was writing both day and night at this time, writing The House of Belonging. And I realized that I had a completely different conversation with the world in the hours of darkness than I did during the day. And I said, what is that? I'm supposedly the same person. I'm sat at the same desk. I've got the same notepad and pen, or I've got the same laptop, depending on what I'm writing on. What is that different conversation? There's something about the night and darkness that represents the unknown. You're a different person at 2 o'clock in the morning than you are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're in a different waveform. There's a different beckoning horizon. The lighted horizon you see in the day, the literal lighted horizon, but also the metaphorical horizon of your ambitions and goals is totally different than the horizon that opens up when all your defenses are down at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's an absolutely scientifically corroborated physical fact that our body is at its most vulnerable at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when we wake up. And if we have no discipline in our mind, if we haven't that rested apprehension of beauty, that's when we become anxious. We don't know how to hold the conversation with the unknown, and therefore we go to what is familiar. We worry, and we become drowned in our worries. Yeah. But it's interesting to wake at 2 o'clock in the morning and follow your breath. Yeah. Or if you're lucky enough to see the moon out of the window, to follow the moon and your breath at the same time. This is a paean, a praise poem to the night in a way, Sweet Darkness. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision is gone, no part of the world can find you. It's time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you.
So nice to hear it right out of the poet's mouth. Sometimes it's just so special.
Oh, yes. I love the way he just continues the poem as if he's just still talking to you.
I know. Isn't that I would never ever do that when I was writing my, reciting my own poetry, but it makes me think, what would that be like? I mean, to me, that would be hard for people to track you. But the thing that David Whyte is known for is, as you can hear, the way he repeats lines several times. That is his style of reciting poetry, and I love it. And I don't feel comfortable doing it myself. I've tried to do it, and it always felt very affectatious when I did it. But it's something I actually would like to do because, you know, when you're hearing a poem, if you miss just a word or a phrase, sometimes you get lost in the poem, and then if he can repeat it, then you really get a sense of, oh, that's what he said. Oh, and that's what I'm feeling about that. You know, you can track it a little more easily. So it's really a great model he's given us, I think, because I don't know anyone else that does it.
I was saying at on my Guzzle concert, which unfortunately first two songs have bad sound, the rest of it's okay. But one of the things that came up out of my head was that, well, what do we do now in 1974? What do we do now? It's just 7 couplets. There's no verse. There's no chorus. These things are difficult. There's no way for anyone to ponder. And it turns out that 50 years later, what most of us seem to be doing is adding the very repeated refrain that Bob already kicked out of the form because you need a pause. You need somewhere to stay by my side, stay by my side, and to reflect.
Exactly.
So the fact that he does that is so kind to the listener.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the presence of something out of Greece. You know, it's Homeric about him. He's the way he presents.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing and instructive.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I've seen him several times, and every time I see him, I always walk away going, wow, you know. Even though he's quite erudite and I think has a pretty big following, every time I've ever had a chance to sort of just hang out and visit with him, he was always so humble and present, very accessible. Kind of like when I met Mary Oliver. So
You got to meet Mary Oliver?
I did. I think I told y'all about going to see her at Emory University. My friend, you weren't there, Diane. My friend who works for Jimmy Carter bought me a $150 ticket, and there are men in white gloves serving, you know, drinks. And then we go into the dining room, and there's Mary Oliver sitting there in a jumpsuit. You know, we're all in our best. And I turned to my friend Rita, who works for Jimmy Carter. I said, "That's Mary Oliver." And Rita is not there behind me because she's figured out that's Mary Oliver. And Mary Oliver is at that point surrounded by people who have figured out that she's there. So I'm very unhappy with myself because I'm thinking, well, Tracey, that was a great move on your part. You were one of the first people in the dining room. You could have talked to her, but no, you didn't. So I'm sitting there through the entire meal, you know, steam is coming out of my ears. And literally every 5 feet in this fancy dining room, it says no photography, no video. And so this was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. I turned to my friend Rita, who had an iPhone. I barely knew what those were at that time. I said, "Rita, technically your iPhone is a camera." Or technically it's not a camera. And I think we should stop Mary Oliver to the bathroom and we should ask for a photograph because she will love us and she will say yes. And that is exactly what we did. It was a great experience.
And did she say yes?
Yeah, because she totally bobbed us out. I mean, she looked us like, shook, you know, smack dab in the eye, vibed us out in that 10 seconds and just grabbed my hand. I have my photograph is me holding Mary Oliver's hand because she just knew she got us. She got who we were. She got what we were doing there. And it was.
Where is it framed in your house?
Oh, it's right here over my computer. You'll see it when you come to Asheville. Yeah, Mary Oliver.
It's called allurement.
So,
Yeah, it doesn't take much for me.
Me either. Yeah. So I'm going to read just a few more poems, and then we're going to listen to another poem that David Whyte's going to read. And then he also wrote several lovely books that are not poetry, and one of them is called Consolations. And it's really just looking at, you know, as an Irish person would, looking at words and sort of defining those words on a different level. And I don't know about you, but the word consolation is a word that my heart needs to hear at the moment. I don't know about you, but COVID's sort of dragging on for me and getting a little harder. And so I'm looking for anything that can console me at the moment.
Is it essays or a novel or what is it?
Well, it's so for example, he just picks a word. Honesty, as I opened it up, just as a fall, and then he just writes a 2 or 3 page treatise on what that word means to him. And we're going to actually read 3 of his words that I think are relevant to Bible lovers.
And what was the first poetry book?
Oh, it's called The House of Belonging.
Oh, right. I am addicted to vows.
It's the one he quoted from. So, did someone want to say something? Continue on the theme of introspective quiet time. This one's called The Journey. Above the mountains, the geese turn into light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with a bone of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you are arriving. I'm gonna skip this one because I don't think we have time for all of these. This is one about his son. His name's Brendan. It's lovely. It's a lovely poem. Jupiter in the western sky, and my son walking with the wide arc of the sea behind him. Above his head, the fishing pole bent as if to catch the daylight star hovering on the broad horizon. The mere shape of him in silhouette I love so much. The whip of his wrist and rascal slant of his cap, like some hieroglyph of love I deciphered long ago and read to myself again and again. When I first heard him in the fluid darkness before his birth, calling to his mother and I from the yet unknown and unseen world to which he belonged, I could not know that particular slant of his face or hand. I could not know how he would speak to me. Our love then was for an unknown promise, or just as strong as if the promise was known. May all our promises from now be just as strong as they are hidden. For no imagining could have shaped you, my boy, as I shape you now, with the eyes of a fatherly love that must be shaped itself by your growing. If I was asked what my gift had been, I should turn and look at you and your beloved fishing pole casting for a star. He told a story in one of the sessions that he sends out about that his wife, whom he divorced, Brendan's mother, was so insistent that Brendan not be allowed to have any guns or any war things, that his mother would not even let him have a stick to use as a gun when he was growing up. And so what did he grow up to become? He became a soldier in the special forces and went to Afghanistan. It's like, well, that'll teach a parent to try to put that much control on a kid. I had 2 more poems. I'm going to skip these because I don't think we have time. I want to just read a few of the lovely words. I picked 3 words out of this book that I thought might be relevant to this evening. And then we're going to hear him read. The word I chose for us tonight was courage. Courage is a word that tempts us to think outwardly, to run bravely against opposing fire, to do something under besieging circumstances, and perhaps above all, to be seen and to do it in public, to show courage, to be celebrated in story, rewarded with medals, given the accolade, but look at its linguistic origins is to look in a more interior direction and towards its original template, the old Norman French cœur or heart. Courage is the measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with another, with a community, a work, a future. To be courageous is not necessarily to go anywhere or do anything except to make conscious those things we already feel deeply, and then to live through the unending vulnerabilities of those consequences. To be courageous is to seat our feelings deeply in the body and in the world, to live up to and into the necessities of relationships that often already exist, with things we find we already care deeply about, with a person, a future, a possibility in society, or with an unknown that begs us on and always has begged us on. To be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. Camus used to tell himself quietly to live to the point of tears, not as a call for maudlin sentimentality, but as an invention to the deep privilege of belonging and the way belonging affects us, shapes us, and breaks our heart at a fundamental level. It is a fundamental dynamic of human incarnation to be moved by what we feel, as if surprised by the actuality and privilege of love and affection and its possible loss. Courage is what love looks like when tested by the simple everyday necessities of being alive. Parenthood in a timeless test of courage and alignment to be a new mother or father and live up to and into the overwhelming power and helplessness of that new love is to be heartfelt, to be courageous just by the fact of being shaken and realigned with a new and surprising life. The first courageous step may be firmly into complete bewilderment and a fine state of not knowing. As new parents, we may not even know what the word parent means. We may not know what to do or how to get through. We literally live to the point of tears and fears, our own and our child's. There is no enemy line to throw at ourselves, no medal to be earned. The interior template of courage shows itself slowly, imperceptibly, the interior psyche settling and seeding itself into a relationship with the future that chooses as its foundation a new and unknown child. From the outside, we see only someone walking along the street, heavily pregnant or pushing a stroller, weighted by the bric-a-brac of parenthood. No glamour in the outward show, deserving of no medal, but on the inside, a heartfelt, robustly vulnerable and courageous realigning of one's life with another. The beginning of a courageous bearing inside that will only later come to fruition on the outside. As actual parents or not, we become courageous whenever we live closely and to the point of tears with any new possibility made known inside us, whenever we demonstrate a faith in the interior enunciations and align ourselves with the new and surprising and heartfelt necessities of even the average existence. To allow ourselves to feel deeply and thoroughly what has already come into being is to change our future, simply by living up to the consequence of knowing what we hold in our affections. From the inside, it can feel like confusion, only slowly do we learn that we really care about or allow our outer life to be realigned in that gravitational pull. With maturity, that robust vulnerability comes to feel like the only necessary way forward, the only real invitation and the surest, safest ground from which to step. On the inside, we come to know who and what and how we love and what we can do to deepen that love. Only from the outside and only by looking back does it look like courage. And thoughts?
I was just reading a quote from Baba where he said, it takes great courage to live a spiritual life.
Yeah, that's why I chose it. I feel like it's just to be alive during this time requires some real courage to not fold, you know? And like you said, like Baba said, to live a spiritual life in itself requires a lot of courage. Yeah. I think a lot of courage. Agreed, 100%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I had to recently break courage down for my girl because she found an old video of The Wizard of Oz. And she's fascinated by the lion. The others she totally understands. If I only had a mind, well, she's got that one. And if I had a heart, well, she doesn't wish to have that. She's got too much of that. But the courage bamboozled her somewhat. He's so big, he's so brave, and then he sings this song, him brave. You tell him in brave. Barbie, you tell him in brave. It's okay. He'll be okay. So I had to explain about, feeling self-conscious about not having enough courage, and remember what happens in the end. Yeah, see, he encouraged. She wasn't going to let me break this down, but because I was having to break it down for her, I was thinking a lot about it too. The word courage. It's a great word.
It is a great word. It's really, yeah, especially, something I don't know, I guess y'all are thinking about this too, but I'm just so kind of acutely aware of the divisiveness which continues in the world, and how it becomes more and more and more divisive, and how it really takes a lot of courage not to get swept up by that, and to just keep reminding ourselves, that we really are in this together, and we're really not going to get out of it unless we do it together. And I think that takes a lot of courage to remind ourselves of that, and let go of being right, and all of that goes along with divisiveness.
I was noticing that the this piece that you just read is so different from his poetry. His poetry has this kind of spaciousness in it. There are these huge spaces within and also externally, a physical space, and he sort of he brings them close in some way in the poetry. So they're very vast. They're big. And this feels very flat compared to that for me.
That's an interesting comment. I think when I first read his prose, I had the same response. For some reason tonight, I haven't been having that response. I've been feeling the depth of his words. And it made me appreciate him even more, because not everybody can be good at prose and poetry. People are often good at one or the other. Usually.
I'm not saying I don't feel it's deep, but just the way the language is used, it can be flat and profound, but it's
yeah. You're saying that you really resonate more with his poetry than his prose.
It really it takes me someplace much farther out.
Yeah, I have to agree with you about that. I think his poetry is where his genius lies. Yeah. Well, I wanted to read this. I'm thinking if we'll run over late if I read this piece about silence and then let him read that poem. Do you mind if we run a few minutes over, or should I skip the one about silence?
I'm fine.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so it's silence is the word I chose. And he says some things that are very different from what Baba says, and I think what we understand. But if you track him long enough, he gets to what Baba says. Silence is frightening, an intimation of the end, the graveyard of fixed identities. Real silence puts any present understanding to shame, orphans us from certainty, leads us beyond the well-known and accepted reality, and confronts us with the unknown and previously unaccepted conversation about to break in on our lives. Silence does not end skepticism, but makes it irrelevant. Belief or unbelief or any previously rehearsed story meets the wind in the trees, the distant horn in the busy harbor, or the watching eye and listening ear of a puzzled loved one. In silence, essence speaks to us of essence itself and asks for a kind of unilateral disarmament, our own essential nature slowly emerging as the defended periphery atomizes and falls apart. As the busy edge dissolves, we begin to join the conversation to the portal of a present unknowing, robust vulnerability, revealing in the way we listen a different ear, a more perceptive eye, an imagination refusing to come too early to a conclusion, and belonging to a different person than the one who first entered the quiet. Out of the quiet emerges the sheer incarnational presence of the world, a presence that seems to demand a moving internal symmetry in the one breathing and listening equal to its own breathing, listening, and elemental powers. To become deeply silent is not to become still, but to become tidal and seasonal, a coming and going that has its own inimitable essential character, a story not fully told, like the background of the sea, or the rain falling, or the river going on out of sight, out of our lives. Reality met on its own terms demands absolute presence, an absolute giving away, an ability to live on equal terms, the fleeting and the eternal, the hardly touchable and the fully possible, a full bodily appearance and disappearance, arrested, giving in and giving up, another identity, braver, more generous, and more here than the one looking hungrily for the easy, unearned answer. That one was less flat, I think, didn't you, Diana?
Maybe somewhat less, but it's still very different for me from the poetry.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow the same way.
Yeah, no, it has a definite, that absolutely has completely different.
It's sort of scattered.
Yeah. Different rhythm, different spaciousness. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think that is a difference between poetry and prose, really. Okay, well, we're just gonna let him read one more poem before the evening's over. Let's see, share screen. And the number is 5157.
Off for a minute or so after my good friend Patrick takes over there and recites and tells stories, so I can relax a little bit. But this is the piece I wrote called The Seven Streams. It's an invitation to that experience, that deep, rested nourishment rising out of the ground of what is when we stop the willful herding of people and circumstances around us. We drop into the presence and we start to bring in the harvest of presence. And out of that harvest of presence, we feel the invitation to follow this path of vulnerability. Why is it the path of vulnerability? Because you often have absolutely no idea where it's taking to you, or no idea of who you're going to become by taking that path. Come down drenched at the end of May, with the cold rain so far into your bones that nothing will warm you except your own walking. There's a species of cold in the west of Ireland that you probably wouldn't even feel in the Antarctic, actually, because it's that combination of wetness and cold and the knife-like wind that comes off of the Atlantic. And you can still feel it in April and May until things start to warm up, until the limestone starts to warm up around you. Come down drenched at the end of May with a cold rain so far into your bones that nothing will warm you except your own walking. And let the sun come out at day's end near Slieve na Glusha with the rainbows doubling over Mullack Moor, and see your clothes steaming in the bright air. Be a provenance of something gathered. Be a provenance of something gathered. A summation of previous intuitions. Let your vulnerabilities walking on the cracked, sliding limestone be this time not a weakness, but a way of understanding what's about to happen. Stand above the seven streams, letting the deep down current surface around you, then branch and branch as they do back into the mountain. And as if you are able for that flow, say the few necessary words and walk on, broadened and cleansed for having imagined. Come down drenched at the end of May, with the cold rain so far into your bones that nothing will warm you except your own walking. And let the sun come out at day's end near Slieve na Glusha with the rainbows doubling over Mullaghmore, Moor, and see your clothes steaming in the bright air. Be a provenance of something gathered. We use this word about food, the provenance of your food, the origin of your food. Be a provenance of something gathered. A summation of previous intuitions. That's a beautiful, beautiful question. What would a summation of your previous intuitions look like at the moment now? Be a provenance of something gathered. A summation of previous intuitions. Let your vulnerabilities walking on the cracked, sliding limestone be this time not an obstacle, but a way of understanding, what's about to happen. Stand above the seven streams, letting the deep down current surface around you, then branch and branch as they do back into the mountain. And as if you are able for that flow, great Irish phrase, to be able for something, yeah, to be able for another person, to be able for life, to be able for the unknown, you know. And as if you were able for that flow, say the few necessary words and walk on, broadened and cleansed for having imagined.
So, thank you for joining me on this journey with David Whyte. You can go to his website if you would like to sign up for his conversations, which this was pulled from. Really recommend them. I think you would love them. Each 2 months, it's a different topic. And they're all just it's a lovely way to wake up on a Sunday morning and with a cup of tea and just listen to something that really sets the tone for the week. He also does tours all around the world. You can actually travel with him to Ireland and Italy, and they're quite expensive. But
Wait, what?
Expensive, but if you've got the dinero, I think it would be a great adventure to go with a bunch of people, follow, go around cliffs and wells and sacred spots and listen to David Whyte talk about things. I think that would be a lot of fun.
When are you seeing the dog?
What, Terry? Oh, y'all are chatting. Yeah.
Sorry about that. She thought we were muted.
No problem. I thought she was saying something. Well, anyway, thank you all so much. And I hope you have a good rest of the evening, whatever you're doing. And take poetry with you if you're organizing or reading resumes. Why not?
Yeah.
Let poetry be part of your companionship.
Today's the new moon.